External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar is on a three-day visit to Russia, marking the second high-profile diplomatic engagement between the two nations. Following National Security Advisor Ajit Doval's trip to Moscow 2 weeks ago, these visits are intended to lay the groundwork for the upcoming annual Leaders Summit, which will feature Russian President Vladimir Putin travelling to India for talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. While these talks are crucial between the long-term friends, the contours of the ties have sharply changed over the last few months, first with disruption caused by Trump's tariffs and India's Strategic Balancing Act, followed by India refusing to kowtow to Trump line and instead choosing to deepen engagement with Russia while also resetting its ties with China. Now, Jaishankar and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will discuss ongoing efforts for a peace deal. Jaishankar's visit to Russia also comes amid continuous remarks made by United States President Donald Trump on India and Russia's partnership, particularly around India's oil imports from Russia. Meanwhile, in New Delhi, Russian Charge d'Affaires Roman Babushkin has sharply criticized Trump's imposition of sanctions on India, calling it a lack of trust and disrespect for India's sovereignty.
If the Indian goods are facing difficulties entering the US market, the Russian market would welcome Indian imports to the most extent possible. So don't worry about that. So as far as energy is concerned, indeed, we see that actually that would be quite detrimental to the global economic stability and energy security. It is not in the Western nature, which was clearly demonstrated in recent years. So they behave like neo-colonial powers, just exploiting and just thinking about benefit for themselves. So we can just agree that this pressure is unjustified.
He also said that the India-Russia ties are deepening after the recent phone call between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi.
The especially recent telephone call by President Putin to Prime Minister of India, Modi, explaining and sharing the information about the recent developments around Ukraine, about this turbulent situation. That means that India matters very much to us. We are sharing, we are coordinating, and we are discussing everything. So we are absolutely capable to find any solution for the mutual satisfaction. Anyone in the world who is valuing its sovereignty and independence is at risk for the pressure from the West. That means just one thing. If West criticizes you, you are doing everything right.
Okay, let's quickly decode the meeting or the Jaishankar's trip to Russia. I'm joined by Ambassador Deepak Vora and Pramit Pal Chaudhary, head South Asia, Eurasia Group. My first question is to Ambassador Vora. Sir, how do we put in context the quick meetings that are taking place and the second visit of External Affairs Minister Jaishankar to Moscow? Please decode it for us, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you and with Mr. Chaudhary, of course, whose knowledge is much greater than mine. But thank you. You are brilliant and your channel is outstanding. Why is he going so often to Russia? Why does the moon reflect the light of the sun every night? Well, I'll answer that question in a little while. We don't reflect anybody's light. Let me put it to you like this, sir. There's a fellow, I think you've heard his name. He sits in Washington, a chap called McDonald Trump. Have you heard the fellow's name? Right. He has said something about India buying oil from Russia, etc., and funding the war machine. May I ask you a question, sir? I'm sure Mr. Chaudhary will have the answer. Did we buy oil from the Soviet Union, ever? Did we ever buy even a drop of oil from Russia before the Ukraine war? No, we didn't. Why now? Because energy constitutes a very large part of my import bill. We used to buy it from Iran and Iraq and Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and all those places. Then when the war started and all these guys said we won't buy from Russia, they went off to buy from the Gulf. Oil prices would have shot up. And so the previous administration in the United States told us, please buy from Russia to stabilize oil prices. They themselves told us. And along comes this fellow and says, you are funding the war machine. Oh yeah, happy birthday. Who developed Russia's oil industry, sir? Was the West, no? It was the Europeans who used to buy all the energy from them. We didn't. Therefore, to accuse us of funding the war machine is not correct. That's the first thing. Then you talk of deepening our strategic partnership. So I've never understood what strategic partnership means. A partnership is a partnership is a partnership. We have diplomatic relations. I don't know whether they're strategic or not, but certainly it's something that we have a multifaceted relationship. Let me give you a little personal episode. My late father, who was an engineer, I used to ask him sometime, Dad, what's the difference between the Americans and the Soviets? And he said, well, the Americans would say, all right, this is the equipment we are sending, press this button, it'll work. If it doesn't work, call me and I'll come fly down and repair it. And he says, with the Soviets, it was, come on, son, roll up your sleeves, get into the machine with me, I'll show you how to fix it. Transfer of technology came naturally to them. That we haven't forgotten, sir. Our people haven't forgotten. So the partnership is not just oil. The partnership is not just defense. The partnership is a willingness to transfer technology. The partnership is based on the fact that they have never sanctioned us, whether we did this, that, or the other. And ultimately, sir, the personal equation, but I've seen their body language, the personal equation between Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Modi, you can tell they like each other and it's trust. The basis is trust.
Okay.
There we are.
Okay. Mr. Chaudhary, your opening comments on this, the quick meetings that are taking place, Delhi, Beijing, and Moscow?
And I even thought that the foreign minister had gone to Iran earlier. Well, there are different kinds of relationships worked out here. Now, Modi is going to Tianjin for the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. That's a pre-scheduled visit. There's nothing really in that. We began the normalization process with China following Galwan about 2 years ago. That continues, and Wang Yi's visit is basically in many ways a preparation for what will be announced at Tianjin, which will probably mean airplane flights will be resumed at the bilateral level. But you saw Wang Yi played his own games with us, right? He said that the Indian foreign minister has called Taiwan a province of China, which the Indian government had to refute and say that's completely incorrect. So with China, we will always have a difficult relationship. They will not fundamentally accept India, the rise of India, and especially because they see that as a undermining of their status as the premier Asian power. But the Chinese do want to get past 2020 because just like us, they have their problems with the Americans. They also have a domestic economy that is in very poor shape. So we know that from the Chinese. I had meetings with them myself on a track 2 basis in April last year, and they were very clear. We don't have to be friends, but we wish to get past 2020 because we have domestic problems that we need to get past. So it's a temporary situation, but it's one that we can happily use. In Russia, we are embracing that country much more warmly and more overtly, and that is a deliberate response to American Western pressure, because the EU is also supporting the US on this, about Russian oil. But I would argue that given that during the 50 rounds of trade negotiations he had with the Americans, they almost never raised Russian oil. The fundamental game for Trump is simple. He wants us to concede on agriculture. That is a real core issue. That's his farmer base is most interested in that. And he's just using that as a pressure tactic. He happens to also be using it on Putin at the same time. That's why he's raised it. But let's put it this way. If we were to stop buying Russian oil tomorrow, and we could do so, it has no major economic cost to India, it would make almost no difference to Trump. He would still put tariffs on us, just for another reason. Because for him, it's about trying to pressure India into making major concessions on trade negotiations, which we're hearing may begin again in October, November.
Let me take you through an article written by Peter Navarro. He says India's politically connected energy tightens and in turn into Vladimir Putin's war chest. And then so forth and so on. He said that, it's not about the domestic consumption. India has somehow become a massive refining hub for the discounted Russian crude. I was going through the data, Parmit, and it says that December 2022 to July 2025, China was the biggest buyer of Russian crude, 47%, coal 44%, EU is the biggest buyer of piped gas, 36%, liquefied form of gas, 51%. Turkey, which is a NATO ally, brought 38% of the Russian crude, and which is clearly a little less than China's 47%. So the fact of the matter is that the entire argument is built on a lie, deceit. The American argument on the Russian oil.
Yeah, I mean, there is no basis for what he's saying. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
No,
This
please.
is addressed to you.
Pramit, the question was to you, and then I'll go to the Ambassador Vora. Yeah.
There's no basis for the argument that the ambassador has correctly said. These were negotiated, India's purchases were negotiated with the United States and with the G7 countries, all of them. And they deliberately said that all they said was that we just want a price cap on what you buy. But we need to allow Russian oil into the market. Russia produces about 11 million barrels per day. There's a global surplus of about 3 million barrels per day. If Russian oil were to go off the market, there would be a 7 million barrel deficit in international oil. Oil prices would rise to above $100, $120 a barrel. Nobody wants that, least of all the United States.